Good afternoon. My name is Bryant Lumpkin, and I would like to talk to you today about my instructional leadership program and how it has helped me master the Alabama Standards for Instructional Leaders. The first project I would like to talk to you about is my action research proposal. I have spent a good deal of time working on this project over the past few years, and it's changed a lot since I first implemented it. But my main goal was to improve reading achievement at Lynette High School. At the time, we were doing the grad exam, and we had a lot of students not passing the grad exam and not being able to graduate because they couldn't pass the reading portion. So I identified that as a problem, and the best way I saw to fix that problem was to implement a structured RTI program. And what RTI is very quickly is a multi-tiered system of delivering intervention to students and bringing them back up to grade level. That's the main goal, but there have been times when we have been taking students through the RTI process and realized that these interventions were not working, even though we tried several different interventions, and we were able to identify a learning disability and recommend them for special education services. Some of the changes I've already mentioned was the grad exam. A lot of other changes have been brought on by the State Department of Education since I began working on my RTI program. And that grad exam one being the main one, because when I wrote my proposal, the main data source was the graduation exam, the reading portion. And now we have moved on. We've done away with the grad exam. We have end of course testing. We have the plan, which all 10th graders are taking, but now they've done away with that. Next year, our 10th graders will be taking Aspire. Our 11th graders are taking the ACT. So we have a lot of data to look at now to be able to identify these students. And we've also had to adjust what standards we were teaching with the implementation of the college and career readiness standards. And we've really had to adjust our instruction and what data we were looking at and how we were going to help these students succeed to be able to perform well in these exams and be college and career ready. We've also added a behavior component. Originally, when we started our RTI plan, we just focused on academics, reading and math. But this past year, we added a behavior component, and we were looking at attendance and discipline issues, things that might affect their academic success in the classroom. It might not be a learning disability. They might be very bright students, but they weren't performing well in the classroom because they weren't there. They weren't coming to school, or they were being suspended. So we began to look at those patterns of behavior and deliver interventions to help those students remain in the classroom and make good grades. We've also had to adjust the changes in personnel. Throughout these years, I've had to continuously train teachers on how to deliver these interventions in the classroom to our Tier 2 students, and not only how to deliver the intervention, but the correct way to keep up with data. That's a big thing with RTI. We've got a lot of data forms, and we look at a lot of different things, and we have to document all of that and being able to keep up with that the way that we're supposed to. But I've also had to stress the need for an intervention specialist. We're really short on personnel because in Tier 3, what we're supposed to do is pull these students out of the regular classroom and deliver intense interventions to bring them up to grade level. When we had the grad exam, we had a full-time grad exam remediation specialist that was able to do this for us and pull out these students that were struggling and help them improve their learning. But since that time, we have had to adjust and do several different things. We've had some part-time people come in and do this for us, but that's been a real struggle for our RTI program in terms of having an intervention specialist. There have been a lot of standards that this RTI program has helped me to master. One is to be able to create and lead a team of teachers to identify these students and set goals for these students and help them succeed. I've had to use a lot of different problem solving techniques. Like I said, we've had a lot of changes and a lot of different things to deal with. We've had to assess student progress using a lot of different tests. Not only do we have, in-class course grades, but we have a lot of standardized testing. We're also doing benchmark testing and different computer programs that we're getting data from to help us see if these children, first of all, if they have a learning deficit, and are they progressing? Is our intervention working? I've had to engage the staff and coach the staff on how to do this correctly, and try to get them to buy into the plan, because there have been several teachers that just see RTI as more work, because it is a lot of paperwork. So getting teachers to buy in has been a challenge as well. So like I said, we've used a variety of assessments. I've had to provide opportunities. We've been able to get the different departments together, get the math teachers together, and review math assessment data and see what standards were common, which a lot of these kids were struggling with, and get these math teachers to really focus on those standards. Same thing with reading teachers, but it hadn't just been English language arts teachers, it's been the entire faculty that's really been focusing on teaching these reading standards and using different reading strategies. I've had to be able to perceive the needs of these students and what they needed, because each student's situation is different, and I've had to be able to do that. I've had to make a lot of contact with the parents. Of course, we send the notifications out to them about their students being in RTI, but I've had to talk to parents and try to get them on board and get them to help the student at home, because we can't do 100% at the school. We need help from the parents. So the more help the parents give us, the better off the student's going to be. And I've had to share a lot of this leadership with my team. Like I said, RTI is a lot of data. It's a lot of upkeep. And so I've had to delegate tasks and be sure that those tasks get done in the correct way. And most of the time, my RTI team, as well as other faculty members, have come through. Of course, we have to use technology to look at this data. We look at a lot of data and graphs and spreadsheets. We have to enter a lot of it into different programs like Excel to be able to see the trends in the students' learning. Of course, I've had to develop good organizational skills to keep up with all this. It is a lot, each individual student having a different folder and a lot of different forms going in each folder. And throughout the whole process, I've had to adhere to a professional code of ethics and values, and act in accordance with state and federal laws. No Child Left Behind, IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. That's what RTI stands from, which we've got to have a RTI system in place. And so that's really what I've had to do throughout this project. It's been a challenge, but I've enjoyed working with it, and I have learned a lot from this RTI program. The other assignment or project that I would like to discuss is my diversity plan, which I worked on in collaboration with other students in that course. In terms of diversity, Lynette High School does not have a lot of different races. We are a majority black school, and we have a few white students, but we do not have any Hispanic students or any other races. So we're not very diverse in terms of race, but we do have a high percentage of students living in poverty. That seems to be the common thread. And so when I delivered my presentation to the faculty at the school, I really focused on dealing with students that live in poverty and strategies for improving teaching and learning. And one of the biggest things I learned from this course was the hidden rules among classes. Many educators live in and come from middle class homes. However, most of our students are not from middle class. So we understand as educators the hidden rules of the middle class. But those students living in poverty have a completely different set of hidden rules that they don't talk about. It's just embedded in them. And so we as educators have to be able to understand those hidden rules of poverty and be able to effectively communicate and teach these students and help them learn and succeed and hopefully bring them out of poverty. We talked about creating an effective discipline plan. The main thing being to teach self-control. There's not always going to be a teacher there telling the student what to do, when to do it. What we have to do is we have to prepare them for life after high school, when they are on their own, to be able to make the right decisions, to be able to see that there are consequences for my actions. I do have a choice. Am I going to make the right choice? We talked about typical poverty-related behaviors. I explained why those behaviors occurred frequently, and I also explained to the teachers different interventions that they can use to deal with these behaviors in a constructive manner. The last thing we did is we assigned mentors for at-risk students. And these mentors were people that the students that were at risk of dropping out or not graduating could go to and feel comfortable with expressing their thoughts and their feelings. And this mentor having an adult in their life to really guide them along and give them good advice that they may not be getting at home. Most of the standards I mastered dealing with this project had to deal with diversity, although the first one I did have to lead another plan, a strategic plan with a goal, and I offered steps to meet that goal. We had to identify differentiated instructional strategies because all students aren't the same. So these students living in poverty, even they're not all the same. What might work for one student is not going to work for the next. And so we had to learn how to deal with each of these students in the most effective way possible. And throughout the process, you got to conform to legal and ethical standards pertaining to diversity. I've had to be able to perceive the needs of others and go beyond the way that I was taught in high school, because what worked for me when I was in high school isn't going to work for all of these kids that I'm responsible for educating. I've had to learn to interact effectively with different individuals from different groups, and I've also had to address student and family conditions affecting the learning, because what they're like at school or their situation at school is not often a good indicator, or it can be, of what's going on at home. A lot of times we have no idea what these kids are dealing with at home, and we have a parent liaison that I was able to discuss the student with, and the parent liaison would make home visits and speak with the parents and see about fixing the problem, and the parent liaison would come back to me. I've also had to talk to a lot of these parents directly over the phone or in parent conferences. And that wraps up my presentation for today. Thank you for listening.